So a very warm welcome, everyone, to the third of the LERO Masterclasses. My name's Ed Day, for those of you that don't know me. I am hosting this event, and as Dave told me, I'm doing the Michael Parkinson role. So I don't quite know how I'm going to live up to that, but we'll do our best. So our theme today is mission, vision, and values. As you know, and I'm going to actually share the slide so that you can see the theme. So let's get those up. Gosh, this is testing my multitasking skills. Right, so hopefully everyone can see the so this is the third of our masterclasses, and this one is about mission, vision, and values. So I think, as by way of introduction, I have been striving as the recovery champion for the last 6 years to try to communicate a vision of a recovery orientated system of care in every local authority in England, but I mean, I'd say it applies anywhere. And I think the best system of care, the only system of care, is one that has all of the elements of a continuum of care. So we pay attention to trying to attract people through harm reduction initiatives and street-based initiatives and meeting people where they're at to engage them. We then help them perhaps through the treatment services to tackle their addiction problem, whatever that may be, in whatever way they want to do it, and help them get into remission. But the key thing, for particularly with people at the most severe end of the spectrum, is that there's also attention got to be paid to recovery and how people sustain those gains they've made in treatment over a long period of time. And that can only be done in people's communities, and it needs organizations that are connected to community in order to do it. So my vision would be we need all the components of a treatment system, and one of those is the lived experience recovery organization. So that's what we have here today. And at the heart of a LERO, what's really impressed me about working with LEROs all over the country over the last 5 to 10 years is how clear they are about their mission and their vision. Let's get this up. Hang on. Their mission, their vision, and their values. So here is a definition of what we mean by mission, vision, and values. So the mission is the purpose of the organization, what they're doing to fulfill their goals. The vision is how they see the future state, where they want to be in the long run, the direction they're going. And all of that is underpinned by their core values, the guiding principles, the beliefs that underpin all the actions that are made in the organization. And the power of having clear mission, vision, and values and revisiting them is that they prevent you getting blown off course. They allow you to keep aiming at the mission that you started out with without getting buffeted by all the things that happen when you try and work in a treatment system. So what we're going to do today is I've invited 3 LERO leaders from different parts of the country to come and tell us about their mission, vision, and values. So the questions I want to ask them, I'll put them up here, is I think what we do is we'll split this into 2 sections. So I'll come to each of you in turn. First of all, we'll discuss mission and vision. And then I'll come back to all of you again to talk about the underpinning organizational values. And then hopefully those 3 examples will lead to a discussion, a wider discussion, and people can chip in about their own experience. But these are the questions we want to get into. So how was it that you developed those particular mission, vision, and values? Who was involved in the process? How long ago was it done? Do you revisit it? Do you reevaluate it? And how do you do that in practice? And I'd really be fascinated by how you use them in practice. Where do they fit into your day-to-day work in your LERO? So I'm going to go to, so the 3 people we've got I'm going to talk to us about are Dot, Marcus, and Dave. So what I'm going to do is, if it's okay, I'm going to go to Dot first. And Dot has sent me a slide with your mission and vision and also your values. Dave, I've also got your slide. And what I want to do then, Dot, is if I could get you to introduce yourself to people that don't know you, mention your LERO, obviously, and then just start off that first phase about talking about the mission and vision. And if you like, when you tell me, I'll put up your slide of your mission and vision.
Thanks, Ed. Yeah, I'm Dot Smith, and I lead Recovery Connections. We're a LERO based in the Northeast, founded in 2008, originally in Middlesbrough, now work across some other towns surrounding Middlesbrough in the Northeast. I'm over the moon to be talking about our mission, vision and values because it's really important to us. It's something that we really hold dear to the organisation, and the shared ownership around our mission, vision and values is really important as well. So it's not something that as a charity we designed as a group of people in a building. It was something that we designed with the community members, and anybody really that has anything at all to do with Recovery Connections. We were really sure to involve everybody in the discussion and the lengthy debate. It took us quite some time to come up with our mission, vision and values. So if you show me the slide, Ed, I can talk through them. Now, you're supposed to be able to quote them off by heart, but I haven't got a great memory. I know what they are and I know what they do and I know the key components, but in terms of quoting them, you know, our vision absolutely is around helping people feel their full potential. And stigma is a huge thing that we do a lot of work in communities around challenging stigma and raising awareness of recovery, and showing recovery to be the positive and beautiful thing that it is. And our vision is for everybody who's been impacted by addiction, whether that's their family members, whether it's the individual themselves, or locations. Often towns such as Middlesbrough has a reputation of being a really tricky town that's been heavily impacted by addiction. We want everybody and their communities to be free from that stigma and discrimination related to addiction and recovery, because as we know that stigma still plays out in recovery as well. Our mission is really important. We are led by the people we support. Everything that we do is a collaborative approach. Our mission was exactly the same. We spent a lot of time talking to people about what they felt the charity stood for, why we existed, what was the things that we were offering. And ultimately, our mission probably took the longest to finalise because words are really important. And I think sometimes as LEROs, we might feel that we have all the answers. But actually, during this process, what we recognised was some of the words that we were pushing to be put into our mission really didn't land well with our community members. And one of the words that I remember was serve. That really ignited some strong feelings from people who said, we don't need serving. We might need a bit of support, but we don't need you to serve us. And we very much do things together, and the word serve suggested an element of power. So that I think that's something when you're developing your mission is really important, that the word resonates with everybody that it stands for, whether that's employees, trustees, community where you're situated, and above all else, the people that we exist to support. We do very much have a coaching approach. We travel alongside people. We don't do to people. And we're a LERO, so of course it's a culture of recovery. And what we do within that, what we offer people is training. We offer support to get into education, and through collegiate recovery, when you go into education, we'll support you there. We want to inspire and offer people hope. And you know, it is about individuals and communities. It's not just about people, it's about where we live as well. That the place that we live is really, really important. And achieving your full potential, you know, we all want to do that. And, you know, what we know is you don't achieve your full potential in a week. It's a lifelong journey. So it's about having things available for people and to travel alongside that journey in the way that works for them. We haven't mentioned addiction in our mission and vision. We haven't, you know, we purposely didn't do that. You know, we see recovery as being that journey of life that we're all on. And it is very much around recovery capital building rather than, you know, that I think that's, as Ed mentioned at the beginning, that's what separates us from the treatment. It isn't a beginning, middle, and end. For us, it's we're here. You're a member of our community. We're a member of your community. We live in this community. This is, we're here for everybody at a time and for however long you need us. So hopefully that makes sense around where our vision and mission came from. And we test this every year. This is something we have what we call our quality network. We bring people together every other month, community members, volunteers, ambassadors, staff, trustees. They come together to be our think tank really, and to make sure, you know, they review all of our policies, they review our timetables, review what we're doing, review any aspirations for things that we want to do in the future, grant applications, that type of thing. They look at complaints, they look at compliments, and our vision and mission is a big part of that. That frames everything that we do. And we test our vision and mission on an annual basis with that group, but also we test it within the localities that we work. Our staff intentionally start to talk to our community members about our vision and mission just to make sure that it still fits. And this was designed in 2019. We revised it completely, our vision and mission, and we haven't changed it since. So I think I'll stop there, Ed. Hopefully I've answered all your prompts.
That's great, Dot. Thank you. Really good start. And it should be said that we've deliberately asked well-established organizations and people to talk about this because it is, as you say, John, a long journey, and we're aware that people in the LERO movement are at the other end of the spectrum and hopefully can take inspiration from some of these ideas. So I think what I'll do, if it's okay, is go to Marcus next. Are you doing this as a double act, Marcus, or is it? Christian's saying
Absolutely.
no.
This is very much a shared experience always.
You better tell her, because I'm not
Yeah.
sure she's convinced. So I'll leave those questions up there, Marcus, for you. If you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about where you work and what you do.
Yeah, my name's Marcus Johnson. Thank you, Ed. I'm the project manager for the Service User Involvement Team, SUIT, based in Wolverhampton. SUIT's been going since 2007 within Wolverhampton. It's always been a part of Wolverhampton Voluntary Community Action, which has also been going quite a long time in Wolves. It was initially set up by, I think, when Tony Mercer was commissioner within Wolverhampton, as an advocacy group, really, in order to give service users a voice, in order to offer a voice over what the treatment service is in Wolverhampton and other services within Wolverhampton. And it's developed. I know Sonny de Hadley was running the service for about 10 years, and it became synonymous with the early days of the LERO, I think, before you guys set up the LERO group. I think it was one of the first models of its time within England, really. And I know Sonny used to get approached quite a bit about transferring what was going on in Wolverhampton to other parts of the country. It is predominantly led by volunteers, and again, everybody who works at SUIT's in either direct lived experience from drug and alcohol or family affected. And over the time, it's just grown from, I first joined as a volunteer in about 2016 and worked as a volunteer for about 18 months and then part-time job, full-time job. And then somebody had the bright idea to make me manager of the service. So it was kind of, things have gone on from there, really. And it's just listening to, I've spoke to Dot and yourself, Ed, outside of this meeting, and it's just wonderful to hear the inspiring story, really, particularly of what Dot's done with up in Middlesbrough, and to see where I guess Suit was always quite a small, like, and it still is really in comparison to a lot of things, a small kind of niche organization in terms of what it offered. It was very small, just public health would support it for a while. And that mission and at the time was always just to support a wraparound service for people in drug and alcohol. We'd do a lot of outreach events. We'd be present at they never used to call it buddy support, but a big part of it now is that buddy support system where people just need to be guided with their early part of their journey. What we found was the vision changed quite a lot, particularly through COVID, where we had another manager come in after Sonny, and he was with us for about 3 years, and we saw that the vision really got kind of, I don't know, for a better word, just a bit blurred, really, in terms of where it was going. Pursuit lost its identity in terms of the outreach that it was doing, in terms of just what it was as a service, really. I felt like it was becoming a bit, I think when you lose your identity as that lived experience organisation, it's really, we needed to put ourselves back out there. And one of my first jobs really in taking over was to, one, make sure that the people who were working within Suit took care of their own recovery, because I didn't really feel like there was an emphasis on the people that were working here and how seriously they took their own recovery. I felt like people were being asked to do things that they probably shouldn't be doing in that stage of the recovery. And in order for that, for people to harmonise together and build a team and then create that structure, part of it for me has also been about shouting about the work that you do. I felt like Suit was very quiet in its approach to what they were doing as a service, and clinical treatment was using Suit, it seemed, to just, I don't like saying it really, but it was almost like free labor in terms of kind of what they wanted to do. It's like the whole lived experience movement was being used as a bolt on to help clinical treatment get where they wanted to be. One of the first statements I remember was this is from clinical treatment, like, everywhere we are, we want Suit to be. We want Suit wandering round in recovery near you t-shirts up and around Wolverhampton, spreading the word of what lived experience is. And that's like, that wasn't my vision for what Suit was going to be. That Suit is its own entity, and people with lived experience supporting people in addiction, in recovery. And it had to be us that was promoting us to do it. Social media was a huge part of what we've tried to do. Again, connecting. I mean, we know full well that we're not going to connect with, I know the term service users, clients, and everybody has their own word for, the people that we work with. And I noticed on Dots that it is about people, and that's what it is about ultimately, because you don't want to label people. It's just sometimes I think because we're bolted onto the clinical treatment provider at the minute, I guess the word client and service users always kind of comes to the front. So yeah, it was about, they're the most important people that we work with on a day-to-day basis. And I felt like, when someone gets like an AQ number, and that's what we were getting, like, people talk about people in recovery like numbers when they come through clinical system, and it's just, well, who is this person? It really annoys me when I appreciate data protection and all that, but when people say, "Can you look at AQ 91256?" It's like, Jesus, that's not what I'm doing this job for. It's a person. Even just this morning, walking past the church down by where we are, there's an elderly gentleman sat outside, freezing, wrapped up, clutching a can of cider. And it's just things like, I stopped and spoke to him, and I just told him to come up to suit and have a cup of tea. And he sat in the reception area now with our Punjabi speaking female worker who's trying to find him a place to stay. You won't get that from clinical treatment. You won't, that's what we just have to do. We see people on a day-to-day basis, and it's just about little things like making them a cup of tea and making them feel welcome, just coming in for a chat, charging the phone, trying to find out why he hasn't got a place to stay when it's freezing cold at night, and nobody should be in that position. So our vision changed a lot when I approached the commissioner in Wolverhampton about I wanted to showcase what we did as a service. For me, like going back to that, we can keep on working and keep on working, and clinical treatment can keep on taking the credit. And we kept feeling like we were getting the crumbs of the appreciation, whether that be financially, whether that be just any way possible, really. Just I didn't want to be seen as an afterthought all the time, and that's what Suit were. We got contracted to work alongside clinical treatment in 2017, which changed the face of how it was in Wolverhampton, really, because when Sonny was in charge of it, Suit was a very much standalone service, just reporting to public health. And then when it got bolted on, almost like a force, it felt like a forced marriage. You will work together. You'll either learn to love one another, or you hate one another. And I kind of like the way that's gone is it's been okay at times, and there's been some successes to it, but ultimately the clinical vision is a lot different to the LERO vision. And as everybody knows, I'm sure you all have these problems, but it's just we're always at seemingly loggerheads about the way things should be done. And when I got Michelle, who's our commissioner within Wolverhampton, to come and see what we did as a service, I remember it was on a Friday afternoon, and we had an art group going on. Christiane was running, and there was about 20 people within this art group. And she walked in, and there's just what I wanted her to experience was just the energy of what lived experience organization can bring. She was just like, "Oh my God, I didn't realize," and she sat down and she said, "I didn't realize you did all this work. I didn't realize you were involved in all these things." To the point when it was like, "What do you need?" And nobody had ever said that. What do you need? It was almost like they got blindsided completely by clinical treatment. And that has allowed us to kind of to revisit. It was almost like we started again. We had this nucleus of a service from 2007, but we were able to almost like resurrect it or re-energize it, and go into the how do you revisit and reevaluate your service. It's constantly ongoing, that evaluation. I feel like there's a degree of competition, particularly within Wolverhampton, and that really allows us to stay on our toes a little bit as well. I think if we look at, there's an organisation called the Good Shepherd, who like homeless charity. They've been in Wolverhampton for like 30 years, or maybe longer, actually 50 years now. And they keep on, I feel like there's an encroachment onto the recovery area of what we do, and that allows us to stay on our toes a bit. And I think alongside clinical treatment and trying to keep pushing to establish the voice of lived experience. And that, I mean, for me, I don't really need a lot of motivation to keep moving forward with it anyway. And I think when we joined the LERO and when we started speaking to Ed and to Dot, and we went up to see Larry up in Halifax with Stuart and that, it was just, again, when the commissioner's behind it as well. I mean, the commissioner was the one who wanted us to go up to Halifax to see how the basement project works, and I think when someone's on your side like that, it definitely helps the cause. We're at a point now where the contract's up for review, and the tender will be going out the end of March probably, and we'll be in a position again where we have to reevaluate where we are. SSMTRG funding allows us to keep reevaluating where we are. Yes, we'd like more. You know, I keep thinking that Michelle's going to just take half the funding from the clinical treatment team and give it to Sue, because we deserve it more than anybody else does, you know. But that realistically ain't going to happen right now, is it? But it's just, we have to keep evolving. If we don't keep evolving, then we'll just, like anything in recovery, particular the message in recovery is, if you don't move forward, you'll stand still and regress. And I think that's a real motto as a service as well. Like the introduction of Christiane doing the arts and creative arts and research side of things, and the Punjabi speaking worker, Polish speaking worker, data illustrator, new hospital link, lived experience. It's all these little parts that are kind of making us more appreciated. And to be quite honest, we were doing this work anyway. And thank God, like, they're just, some of the guys are now being paid for it, of the work that they were doing. And there's another 10 volunteers working here who also could just start being paid tomorrow. But again, right now, the funding's not there for it. So it kind of, it keeps us on our toes, and that's where we need to be, you know, because we want the voice of lived experience to come through. For me, I know it needs to work alongside clinical treatment, but I just think it could have more of a voice and more of a presence, because, like I've said before, like I never wanted to be seen as an organisation that's just run by a bunch of addicts. There's a bunch of professionals with lived experience, and the professionals working here, that stigma, what Dot mentioned earlier, that's the thing that keeps us suppressed sometimes, because when we've got professionals, staff members doing PhDs with degrees, I think you need to highlight that, because we've done a research project recently for public health around the whole dual diagnosis, and we weren't impressed with the clinical treatment dual diagnosis perspective. So Christiane and Sabrina did a research project from a lived experience perspective alongside public health, and it was incredible, and it was well received. And for me, it captures everything that we wanted to deliver around what the dual diagnosis project should look like. And we're heavily involved in it. So, you know, we can do so much and so much more. So I hope that covers some of it.
That's brilliant, Marcus. Thank you very much. It's really great to hear. I mean, the plan for these masterclasses is to try and bring in LEROs from across the country that haven't perhaps spoken at these meetings or haven't showcased. If just as a plug, the LERO members meeting, which happens on one Monday each month, we usually do share these types of experiences. So different people come and talk about their journey and the service and whatever. But I think we're going to be approaching some of you to talk about some of the key topics on this, because it's really great to hear your individual story. And what I got from that was, you know, this thing about what was useful there was the mission and vision changing over time, and going back and reevaluating it and realizing that there'd been a drift, and that you're doing things for someone else's reason rather than your original one. I think, just to move things along, the final person that's going to talk about the mission and vision is Dave Hyam. So I'll hand over to Dave. If you just introduce yourself, Dave, and just cover the mission and vision, and then we'll come back together and just cover the organizational values. If people have questions that they want to ask or things to chip in, we'll be coming to that afterwards. By all means, put them in the chat, and we can get going on it that way. So I'll hand over to you, Dave. I'll put your slide up as well.
Thank you, Ed, and thank you guys, Marcus and Dot, for sharing. It was fantastic. I'm Dave Hyam. I'm founder and chief exec of Warrior Down. I'm also a founder of another organisation that was a bigger organisation, and grew that up until 80 staff. And now I'm in another chief exec of this LERO. So I'll incorporate some of the developments of that mission and vision and how they come about. And for me, you know, as someone who's founded an organization, most of that mission and vision come from me in terms of what I was needing and what I was lacking, and what I'd identified in my own community, really. Because our mission come about in terms of harnessing the strengths of lived experience to promote healing, resilience, and recovery, and fostering compassionate communities. And it was like, in my addiction, growing up as a child, I didn't feel a part of any community. I just never, even in my own home, I didn't feel like I belonged. It was an abusive, it was a violent upbringing. The community, I lived in the streets, and was in addiction from the age of 12. So I always felt like it is separated, and alone within my communities, and I wanted to enable them communities to come together in terms of harnessing the strengths, because I started to identify the strength in me and the strength in other people, the assets within that other people, and they're not just seen as deficits and not just seen as the problem. That, you know, you said it there, Marcus. I've been chanting that, saying, I am a professional with lived experience. Do not put my lived experience before all of me, and don't make that all of me. I'm more than my lived experience, and identifying the assets within that community. So, you know, for me, it was about bringing them key assets. When I come up with this idea of setting up a LERO, I identified key people who also needed support, who also was an asset within that community. And then identifying assets in terms of building and places, and seeking and securing certain buildings in order to start creating that community. So for me, it was about tapping into those assets within them individuals, and our vision in terms of a caring, compassionate, and stigma-free community. And everyone seems to have that stigma within their values, within their vision, where everybody has the opportunity to recover and improve their lives. And this is massive for me in terms of, like, everyone should have a right to recover. Everyone. You know, it's not, oh, they're too hard to reach. It's not that they're too deep in the chaos. They're in the trenches. There's no helping this person. They're a prolific offender. They're in prison all the time. You know, they've been in services. They never comply with their orders. You know, they're a lost hope. Throw away the key. No, we have to create the right environment for people to recover. Because if we create that right environment, people will recover. 100%. I believe that. And I believe our vision in creating them caring and compassionate environments and communities. I truly believe it. And we have to do that. Because it says everyone has a right to a home. Everyone has the right to have a roof over their head. Everyone has a right to recover, and we have to create that environment in order to do that. And in terms of how, you know, this vision is developed, I started off because I was in abstinence-based recovery, so I was selfish. When I set up the LERO, I set up for my own needs, because I also went to, it was a meeting at home. I wanted to do things outside of just going to a mutual aid meeting. I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't do these things. So I wanted to create an environment for people with abstinence-based recovery. So that vision was to create an abstinence-based recovery community that engaged in different distractionary activities that we could get together. But then I realized I am more than me. I have family, I have siblings. So we then evolved and opened that up to families. So it became an abstinence-based place with families. And then we evolved again in terms of, well, hold on a minute. How are those people who are in the grips of addiction, who are stuck on maybe a prescription medication? How are they getting hope, and how are they being inspired to move on? So then we opened our doors to people that were on methadone assisted recovery. And then we opened our doors in terms of people within the criminal justice. Then we opened our doors to them with people with mental health. Then we opened our doors to people who had been through trauma. And then we started to create a wider community. We were all living together. And that removes that stigma, that us and them attitude, that we were one and we become one community. So that developed over time in terms of how we've grown as an organisation, as individuals. And it's important for me that we evaluate in that, you know what, we leave no one behind. You know, the warrior down, we don't leave any warrior behind. We make space, we create that environment for everyone to recover.
So Dave, do you want to, I think as you're in full flow, why don't you carry on to talk about your values, and then we'll circle back through Marcus and Dot and they can discuss those. So talk us through, you've got them on the screen there. Talk us through the values that underpin what you do.
You know, I truly believe our values are the most important thing. We can talk about setting up LEROs, you need this, you need that. If these values are not in place, if these are not there at the very beginning, at the heart of you're growing your LERO, it becomes chaotic, and it's like we're blinkered, or we're blindfolded, because these are the things of how we conduct ourselves, of how we behave, and how we hold everyone to account. Because I've seen these LEROs growing. Oh, there's someone in recovery. There's an ex-offender. Let's create something. And the behaviour and what they're about is completely chaotic. You can't create and sustain a lived experience organisation by chaos. We have to be accountable to ourselves and our community and each other. And these are put in place in order to do that. Treating everyone with empathy and respect. Not just to put these values in a document and forget about them. I make sure as a chief exec that I hold everyone in my organisation, every staff member, every board member, and every person that walks in with empathy and respect. And if we don't see that, we challenge each other to make sure we're giving each other respect. Inclusion, all voices are valued and heard. It's important that these are heard, that everyone's heard, that my door is always open. Doesn't matter who you are, you know, from a client, frontline staff, it doesn't matter. My door is open. You have a voice and I will hear your voice. And the staff have a voice. Because collectively, we run this LERO. Include lived experience leadership, empowering individuals to lead and recovery efforts. How are we bringing the next generation of leaders through our organisation? Because I won't be here forever. Dot won't be here forever. Marcus won't be here forever. We need to grow them leaders within our organisation to pass that baton on to the next generation that are coming through. That's our legacy. That's our responsibility to make sure we continue the work long after we've gone. And dignity and respect, recognising that the worth of every person. We value these people. I could give you examples after examples where people have been turned away from other organisations and they roll up on our doorstep and we welcome them. We show them love and compassion. We put an arm around them. We don't trust a document, a risk assessment in front of them. We put our arm and say, do you want a cup of tea? What's happening? Working together to create change. And also harm reduction and recovery orientated care, supporting all recovery pathways. You know, we don't want this vision that like, oh, harm reduction's here and abstinence-based recovery's there. It's crap. We need each other and we need to integrate into each other. Dead people can't recover. So we provide harm reduction services. We provide recovery services. Everyone who come into the organisation, staff member, volunteer, I personally done the introduction, because I wanted to tell them from the horse's mouth that if you do not conduct yourself and apply these values, then you don't belong here. And I will hold you account. You hold me account to these values. If you see me and behaving in a way that's not in line with these values, then you pull me up. And if we get this foundation right, when we start a LERO, we're on a good footing. They're important, they're integral to the longevity of lived experience recovery organisations. Thank you.
Dave, excellent. Thank you. That delivered with your usual passion, and I can see, you know, that's a really great start, looking at those values there that underpin yours. Marcus, shall I come back to you to think about the values that underpin Suit? Are they similar to Dave's, different? Do they change over time? How does that work? He's unmuting. Do you want me to do it for you?
No,
There we go.
It's cool. I'm all right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, thanks, Dave. That was very passionate and really kind of like really inspiring, you know, to hear, because I think sometimes, you know, it's all about how you put it across, you know, as an individual running Suit, that, you know, I share a lot of those same values that you do, and we what keeps us going and what keeps us driving forward is what I didn't get in my early days of recovery. Do you know, the things that stopped me from being able to access the proper treatment I needed, and just, yeah, we share all those things that you've put down, and it's so important to also have a continuation of the service. You know, we've one of my big things here is creating a structure so it can move forward and it can move on, and that's not from a place of me wanting to get anywhere further or what. It's about just creating that establishment and putting deep roots into what the lived experience movement is within Wolverhampton. Do you know, I think obviously I know that the recovery walk thing was like, you know, in between Wolves and Solihull, and you know, as long as someone got it in the West Midlands, that's great, you know. And it's just an opportunity for Wolverhampton just to continue to showcase the work that we're doing, because I want people to see that, you know, Wolverhampton's a deprived area, massively multicultural, and it's about integrating that multiculture also, that we want communities to come together, we want communities to work together, and every person gets treated the same. Do you know, I spent a long time trying to get a team that would be able to do that, you know, from like I said earlier, from the Punjabi speaking worker to the Polish speaking worker. The arts creates such a platform for people to be able to access recovery differently. You know, we do smart meetings, and I'll always refer people through to mutual aid, because mutual aid worked for me. And then you see different things like, I don't know, I was at a men's mental health group the other night, and I just found it, I don't know, there's a lot going on that's, people try to help, and I think it can have the opposite effect sometimes. And for me, we just need to keep doing what we do well. And I remember Stuart said that to me once when we went up to Halifax, like, if you do what you do well, then you don't have to worry about anything else. And I know that our morals and our values are right. I know that we work hard on our own recovery values. And if you've got the correct recovery values, that feeds into the LERO, into the structure. Treat people well, be respectful to others, and keep your side of the street clean, you know. And it's kind of, those are the things on a day-to-day basis that I keep trying to do for me. And I also am a big believer in the energy that comes down from the top. I've seen other organisations where you can see that there's anxieties, you can see that there's a lack of energy, you can see that there's a lack of passion, and that filters all the way down through the team. So on a day-to-day basis, it's about the passion that I have as a manager of Suit, and a passion for someone who's in recovery, that we have to keep moving into those areas. And my team reflects my energy, I'd hope anyway. And I think that we're going to keep growing, and we'll keep looking for people like Warren. Warren's one of our volunteers. He's made some fantastic inroads into working alongside probation, working alongside the criminal justice in the prisons, going out to educational places, and he gets it all through passion. And people keep asking him to go back because he's passionate, because he talks. And like a lot of us, I suppose we all come in with it, and we can say things and think, oh, I probably shouldn't have said that at that point. And it's about harnessing and about developing. And again, it's about recovery. He's been clean for a couple of years, but for everybody, another year, he'll be talking a lot differently. Another 6 months, he'll be talking a lot differently. He's representing recovery, and he's getting people to listen where clinical treatment can't. He is, and breaking down that barrier for us to be able to go in there and ultimately just to get people to listen and to get well. You know, I think I saw a slogan the one day, and it just said, I don't know where it was, but it said, we get well, and then, and the dots at the end of the then are everything about the recovery. It's like, we do get well, and then what happens? And we can fill those dots full of like whatever we want, as long as we're held, we're supported, we're given hope. And that's what we try to do at Suit, give people hope in recovery, a vision of what recovery could look like. That's the most important thing for me, what it could look like.
That's brilliant, Marcus. That's really, really helpful. I think this is so great because we're very much on time here. So if I circle back just to Dot to talk about values, and then what we'll do is we'll throw it open to a wider discussion, and it'd be interesting to hear other people's views on some of the topics that we've covered. So let me go back to there's your slide, Dot, if you.
Yeah, thank you, Ed. Yeah, I mean, our values is really central to Recovery Connections. We use our values in everything. Our values form our annual staff awards and celebration. Each award is a category that is one of our values. We talk about our values a lot. We hold each other accountable. You know, we very much all work in progress, and we don't get everything right all of the time. So, you know, again, we use our values to make sure that it's safe to fail, it's safe to get things wrong, but we learn and grow together. And, you know, ultimately, these values were given to us by everybody, every stakeholder within Recovery Connections, from the community. As I said about the mission and vision, are absolutely central. Our staff, who probably about 60% of our staff were community members. You know, they came to Recovery Connections for support, and then learned and grow together with all of us, and became staff members, as is very common in LEROs. And, you know, I personally think that's what makes us really, really special and have the impact that we do. But, you know, we believe in the power to change. That is so important. It's already been mentioned by, you know, Marcus and Dave. A lot of our staff were people who the treatment system had seen as people who could never change, people who could never aspire to be anything different or anywhere different to where they currently were. We prove people wrong constantly, because we believe that everybody has the power to change, and we will travel alongside that aspiration to wherever that takes us. And we don't define where people should go, people define their own end point. So that power to change value is so important. you know, having a big heart. You know, Marcus described his journey into work this morning. That happens all the time in LEROs, and so it should. You know, we have a big heart. We never close the door on anybody. Everybody is welcome. We work right across the spectrum. You know, we commissioned alongside treatment providers. We subcontracted by treatment providers, and our role is before treatment, at the beginning of treatment, middle and end. And then, you know, that visibility is really, really important. Humility, you know, I think as LEROs, humility is so vital. We absolutely learn from the people that we exist to support. We learn from each other every day. We're all work in progress. It's an ongoing journey, and we all humble enough to admit that and to celebrate that. Hope, we never give up on anybody. You know, I think that's true of all LEROs. We never give up on people. And we're authentic. We're open, honest, and genuine. And you know, we admit when we get things wrong. We admit that within our commissioned world, that we've got things wrong. We don't try to hide anything, because we see that those things that we don't get quite right as the biggest learning opportunities. And fundamentally, you know, unity is so important. We do thrive and grow with others, whether that's within Recovery Connections, whether that's in the local community, whether that's in the ecosystem of a treatment service. We don't do anything in isolation. Everything happens because there's multiple players within that purpose. And we celebrate that. You know, we don't try and set ourselves apart. We see ourselves as being a member of the community, but also a member of a treatment system, a member of wider society, and we bring all that recovery gives to that place. And just to kind of finish in terms of our values, we also use it, you know, as an organisation, we have policies and procedures. As a charity, we use our values in everything. We use it for the good, but also we use it. You know, not all teams function perfectly. As staff, we don't function perfectly all of the time. Things go on in our lives that might change the way we show up in the workplace. And we use those values to have conversations. You know, sometimes disciplinary procedures have to be invoked. You know, we look at whatever's happening, where's that jarring against our values? What's playing out now that is the opposite of what our values are, and we use those values to have those conversations. And just to end on the way that we present our mission, vision, and values, you know, we recognised that not everybody wants to read a document, that visual representation of words is often helpful. It certainly is for me. I see in pictures, I think in pictures, and our community members tell us the same. So when we did our mission, vision, and values, we present it in this way because it's meaningful to the community that we exist for. It's meaningful to us as an organisation. And actually, some of the feedback that we got, because we sent it all out to wider stakeholders, which were other organisations, not necessarily drug and alcohol organisations, you know, they were included, but it was other organisations that we work with, such as local authorities, such as mental health trusts, and other charities that work in our localities. Not everybody saw the way that we presented our mission, vision, and values as a good thing. And that's okay, that's their opinion. We took it on board, but we didn't change anything. And also our values were seen as a little bit quirky, that they weren't values that other organisations would recognise, but they're absolutely values that we recognise within a lived experience recovery organisation. So, you know, it's about not fitting with the expectations of the wider system out there, but making sure that the values are representative of who we are as a charity and who we are as a LERO. And again, like the mission and vision, these are tested all the time. They haven't changed since 2019. They might change one day. You know, I actually think that there's probably a couple of things that could go in there, but that's not my decision. That's the decision of the wider members of Recovery Connections. Thank you.
That's brilliant, Dot. Thank you very much, everyone. Wow, look at that. 1 minute to 11, and we've done our, I mean, it couldn't have been planned better. Let me take, let me stop sharing this so that everyone can see everyone else. So it would be really great to hear people's views on any of the issues we've talked about there. So the importance of having a mission, having a vision of how you want to develop, and then the underpinning values. And I think just for me, I pick up three things from all of you that are really chiming with me. One is this thing about, I'll just re-emphasize it, that you've reflected on the world that you're sitting in, the treatment world and whatever. And I absolutely agree there's a lack of parity of esteem in terms of recognizing where the lived experience part fits in that. But it's so important to focus on the vision and the thing that I've really picked up. The first thing I wrote down was positives, assets. It's about, I'm feeling good just listening to this, because what you're all discussing are the good things in life, the good in people, the helping. And unfortunately, my reflection of working 25 years in treatment services is through no fault of the people in them, they get pushed down a very negative line, because it's the world we live in. When something goes wrong, people want to publicize it and point the finger. And sometimes that's important to learn from that. But it's also important to have the other side, to recognize that you know, there are assets in the community that we can link people to, and that we can everyone has strengths, and very often they don't get acknowledged in this process. The second thing is the compassion. So I really worry, my observation is that we lose compassion in clinical services for whatever reason, but we stop. The reason that I think a lot of people went into this is because they want to help their fellow human being. And we've heard lots of examples of compassion being flouted as a virtue rather than hidden away and criticized. And then the third thing that I think is particularly important that came out with there was this thing about how do you manage, if that's the right term, someone working for you who has lived experience. And I think that's a particular skill, because lived experience is an incredible tool to harness, but you know, addiction, if you're in addiction, you've been in active addiction, you're going to be, unfortunately, at some point potentially vulnerable to lapse and relapse. That's just part of the process. You learn from that. It's not something to blame people about, but I think it needs a particular style of management, and we've heard that articulated in different ways about how you encourage people in that situation, rather than treating them in the way that other employees may get treated in that. And then that also includes, we've heard it mentioned, Dot was saying, holding people accountable. It's also, Dave was saying as well, that's also part of it. And that's the strength, I think, that when I work alongside people with lived experience, I see it absolutely invaluable, because very often that honesty that cuts through from having been in that place, you can hold people to account far more than I can as a clinician in the system. So those are just my views. Fascinated to hear if anyone has any comments or views. I mean, put your hand up, on electronic hand if you can work out how to do that, or just, I can see everyone on the screen, so stick your hand up if you want to speak and you can't find the hand. But it'd be really nice to hear from other LEROs at different stages in this journey, whether you have I can see in the chat there's lots of sort of similarities, but are there differences? Have people had a different experience? David, do you want to start? David Pontin? He's found the electronic hand, you see. Oh, you're on mute, David. That's no good. You've got to get off mute. Let me, hang on.
There you go.
There you go.
I got one right, got the other
Brilliant.
one. Brilliant.
Brilliant. That's all we need.
Got it half right. I'm inspired again, but I think what I'm listening to is when organizations develop, people change from being leaders to being managers. And that's different. And every organization needs a leader, because they're the thing that people get inspired by listening to the leaders of these organizations. I'm inspired. So I think sometimes we can get bogged down with it. And I think we can overcomplicate the mission. There was a lot of words going on in all those missions and visions for me. And I think it's because sometimes when we're trying to develop these things, we can try to please a lot of people. And for me, it's relatively straightforward, but that's because I'm thick. So basically for me, I think like this. I have unconditional positive regard for everybody. I don't need to explain it any more than that. Everybody matters, including me. Everybody matters. So now I've got that. My vision is, for my little thing that I'm doing, is just hope, really. And the best definition of hope I've ever heard is when the will to change meets the way to change. And we're the way. We're offering. Dot said it. She mentioned the swear word, the coaching word. That's the culture, isn't it? There's no one way. So I love that. But for me, mission is, it needs to be concise and clear, I think, because we can overthink it, and then it's difficult to communicate, I think, to people. And Dot said, didn't she? She said, and then people go, I don't like that word. Do you know what I mean? And I wish you said this instead. Yeah. Whereas I think if we start, my mission statement, I suppose, is hope, access, choice, support. That's it. So unconditional positive regard. And I want to provide hope, access, choice, and support. And for me, I think I asked the question, who's it for? What's it for? That's it. What are we doing? Who is it for? And then what's it for? What is it? So, yeah, you guys, you just really inspire me. I'm like super motivated again every time I come on listening to your stories. So I'll finish it there. Thank you. And I hope I haven't blabbed on too much.
No, lovely. Thank you, David. That's really, really helpful. Anyone else want to come in? John?
Yeah,
John,
I'm off unmute. I'm unmute. So yeah, I took some notes there, and it was interesting. I don't know if I'm very good at explaining this concept. Recently, I was looking at mission-led rather than task-led, and so one of the things that I see professional clinical treatment services doing is that they become task-led. Their data is more important than the community. So, you know, I see a bit of that going on. I like that Dot highlighted the word serve, and I'm going to think more around that because as a community, I find that really interesting. You know, that connotation of serving. You know, because there's more than and less than involved in that. Yeah. I'm absolutely going to steal from Marcus and put it as a strapline somewhere, professionals with lived experience. I'm going to have that somewhere. Yeah, that's really cool. I like as well, keep doing what you're doing and do it well. Yeah, so other people can be as poorly led and whatever as they want to be, but I want to do the best for me and my community. And then I heard, and I may have heard this wrong, you know, I heard two different ends of the spectrum. I heard community-led values and team-led and really including everyone in what those values are. And then I think I heard at the other end of the spectrum, you're not welcome here if you don't comply with my values. Yeah, so I'm trying to teach and explore values, not impose my values on the community. You know, when I was in early recovery, my values were screwed. I had no idea what was important and not important. And so I need to teach and explore values, what they mean, why are they important? You know, do you have different values because you're from a different culture and all of that sort of thing? I don't want to impose my values on people because they might be crap. So yeah, I heard two different ends of that. Yeah, and you know, fantastic. Keep doing what you're doing and do it well. Passion is fantastic as well. So thanks, folks.
John, that's a really lovely summary. Thanks for picking out those key points. That's brilliant. Jamie, you're next.
Try and navigate Zoom. Yeah, just really fantastic, inspirational, as always, guys. And we're very early on in our journey down in Surrey, and you know, we're talking about values and how we connect with others through a value system rather than the professional kind of titles and all of that goes on. And we were trying to do some meaningful co-production around that, and it's quite difficult to be able to get rid of all that and teach that value system. But I think one of our LERO members said to us, "Oh, would it be wonderful if he had like if the systems could mirror kind of the values that we have in recovery? Wouldn't that be just something that would be pretty insane, where the honesty, the transparency, the humility, and all of that kind of stuff comes through it?" And why not? Let's dream. You know, you don't know, do you? And I think one of the guys, I think it was you, Dave, that you were saying about the accountability and the responsibility and pulling each other out when we're not kind of in that in the principles or the mission or the values and that sort of thing. And I think that's a great thing that we do within our LERO, is that we are all accountable and we all practice these principles. And it's also, we can get contorted with all the stuff that's going on and the politics and the bureaucracy, but these value systems just click in. Right, this is who we are. This is what we're about. We don't need to engage with all of that stuff, you know, and that is just, I think just having that as a reset really, really helps us kind of manage ourselves within the system. So, you know, really important stuff. But again, I've taken so much from this today. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jamie. That's brilliant. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I think that's what I think as well, that the values as a reset, as a touchstone to go back to when things are going, because things will always go awry. You're always getting hit by various challenges. And I think in Dot's the values you mentioned, you specifically, the term humility, I think, is really important. And I think none of us know anywhere near everything. So we've got to remember that at times and go back, and we can always learn from individual situations. Does anyone else want to come in and mention how this is linked to their, or tell us a bit about their experience in their LERO? Ruth, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I feel I should speak and just say thank you for all that. We're at such an early stage, but it's really helped to clarify the difference between mission, values, and vision, and just to give us a bit of a framework that we can work into. Yeah, not sure what else to say, but
excellent. Thank you.
Brian, thanks. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So we don't have to use all the time. We may have said all we need to say. Nikki, yeah.
Ed, I can't find my hand on the little screen, but I
right, I saw you. Don't worry.
I will come in to thank Dave and Dot and Marcus as well. He had to mention the walk, didn't he? He just had to do it. But like that experience of we both bid for the walk as well, and the experience of them 2 to 3 weeks of, you know, the vote that went out across the West Midlands, across the country. Like, recovery was the winner. There's over 20,000 votes you know, and the web pages, Facebook, social media and stuff like that were just getting it after it after it, having a look at like who we were, the same with what our mission was, what our vision was, and what our values were too. And it was really difficult for us because when we come about just over a year ago, we sort of come out of another LERO that had gone insolvent, and we looked at the values that had been left behind from the previous LERO and how we would adopt those values, but the difference would be that we would implement them rather than just adopt them. Because I think you see it, I mean, we're currently working with a service provider and our values align, and that's why we're working with them. But what I do find sometimes is like our values are our moral compass. They help us make decisions, build relationships, and create a positive community and society around us. It's difficult at times when your values align with another organisation and they don't implement the values that they show. So it can be a really tricky situation. But yeah, I just wanted to thank the three organisations and the three people that shared today.
Thanks, Nikki. I've got a good old fashioned manual hand in the air from John Harrison.
Hello there. Good day. I was a little bit late because I got my times mixed up. I wonder why, but yeah, it's great. So I've been doing some stuff with Ruth. I've just started doing it down in Bristol, and to be honest, it's really exciting. It's at the embryonic stage. I think that's some of the big issues that we're facing at the moment is culture and values, and we don't want to get too entrenched because we need to develop, but we also need to develop as a group, and you can see the different dynamics in the group. It's quite tricky, and you know, cultures, as somebody mentioned earlier, have different values, but I think innately we have human values. And when you want to sort of in the service sector where you're looking after people, I think most people have them innate values where they want to look, but the lived experience is one of the things. I mean, the things that we've experienced in our lives, we want to alleviate in others, and that's where them learned values, you can in many ways you could have only been in them dark, dingy places to be able to apply that to the people that are walking through the doors, the people that you want to help, and it all goes hand in hand. But that's the big thing for us is we're trying to gel together as a group. I haven't met a lot of all the group. I've met about 15 individuals, but it's exciting times for us, and I'm looking to see how we set our values. I mean, my thinking is that, you know, we do have legal frameworks, and that's probably a good place to start. We have equality and diversity. We know all about that, or we should do, and we need to be accepting of everybody, and people come from different places. You know, neurodiversity, it's a complex situation, and we're dealing with human beings with all sorts of problems. But anyway, down in Bristol, it's exciting.
That's great to hear, and we're always keen to hear. So we've heard from people that have been on the journey for decades, but the point of LERO is it's supporting people at all stages, and what can you learn? And I mean, it's so great people sharing their experiences and finding common strength and challenges. I mean, there are plenty of, God knows there are plenty of challenges in doing this. So that's really great, exciting to hear about how things develop in Bristol in a new world. So last sort of 10 minutes, does anyone else want to have a burning desire to come in and make a comment? And so I've got Cara and David Lilly. So let's go with Cara first and then David.
You know what? I think I've really loved what I've heard about the mission and the values and the different things and how we incorporate that. In Staffordshire at the moment, we are undergoing something that's quite different across the UK. Really, we're under what's called a Section 75, but what that means is that we're under the care of a residential rehab we're in partnership with the medical side of things, which is MPFT. We've got Better Way Recovery, which is another LERO, and ourselves and the commissioning team on board. So I get that the culture at times, there's been some really tricky conversations. And I think the good thing about the LERO meetings is that we've managed to establish, you know, we've got really good support from the Basement Project. It's without the Basement Project, we wouldn't be where we are, in that we use their program, and they have helped us from the get-go. You know, we've got support, and we are collaborating with Suit again in May. So, and that's all been formed from the LERO meeting. So we've got a big theatre show that's happening down in Stones. So I think sometimes it is about making those friends in other places, because I know that at times I can get quite disheartened and I can bang the drum and I can be as loud as possible, and I can almost forget the incredible work that not just Chase Recovery does, but the Basement Suit and all of your other organisations. So it is an important part just to share those successes as well.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, and that, I absolutely agree. The more of that we can do, the better. David, do you want to come in?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you for the speakers and the contributors. I found that really useful today. On the subject of values, I must add, we run the Your Choices Matter programme in Derbyshire, and where obviously we don't regard ourselves as a LERO, we regard ourselves as a project, but we understand the significance of LEROs, and the county of Derbyshire doesn't really have one officially, and we're working as part of a group to try and think about how we can come together to do that. But I think the thing that stood out for me most today is the discussions around vision and values, particularly values, and some really interesting comments on values, because we as human beings all know that we grow up, our social condition, our parents, what happens in our early years determines some of our own personal values. So human beings are always going to have contrasting values, but one message that I took loud and clear from what the people contributed today was that we need to work within a LERO to have shared common values of integrity, decency, and treating people with respect at all times. And I think it's important that even though people are going to share different values, that there are a set of common values. And I think taking that away from today is really powerful. When people join our program, we do talk to them about the values that we expect them to demonstrate, but they do revolve around common values that are conducive to the program being harmonious and effective for everyone. But the different opinions that I've heard on that today, but particularly the people that have said these are foundational, vision and values is critical, I completely agree with that. So thank you for that. I've enjoyed it today.
Thank you very much, David. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I mean, I think this is the key in a world that, you know, politically is getting more and more polarized, and everything's built around, you know, sort of being aggressive to others and denying other people, putting tariffs on and invading, and, you know, surely and it was said earlier, the principles of recovery that drive a lot of people's recovery, that going back to basics and humility and care and compassion for other people, which get thrown out in our viciously competitive commercial world. At the end of the day, those are the core human values that will keep us all going and keep us alive. And hey, it wasn't so long ago we were in the pandemic and we were seeing this. We were seeing people coming together in community, and it did give me a bit of hope that maybe we could survive. But I see it's gradually being sort of toned down and driven out of the discourse again, and we go back to what we were before. So I think, you know, I genuinely think that the recovery movement it should be an inspiration to people worldwide, because it is really going back to those core human values, and that's what's I honestly believe, I work in treatment systems, I honestly believe that that's what the people working in there believe, but they get blown off course by just the infrastructure and the stuff that goes on around it, and that's where values are so important, because if you come back to them, it allows you to remember why you were doing what you were doing. David, you come in. David Pontin.
Yeah, sorry, really quick. I was just listening to that again, and I think there's an element in there, just be kind, isn't there? You know what I mean? It's just that. Yeah, I think it doesn't need to be more complicated than that, I don't think. But and never underestimate the power of a kind word, I don't think. You know, there's that, isn't there? But I'm coming back to this values and mission. There's this bit when we talk about like the treatment services in us, and it's come up quite a few times in other things as well. And I think our values and mission allow us an opportunity to differentiate ourselves rather than align, because that's what we're trying to do. And it's come up again today. And I had a conversation with Dot a while ago about it, and she was kind enough to give me some time. And it's this thing, isn't it? It's that somebody wrote an article called "Get Your Tanks Off My Lawn," and I think that's our mentality, isn't it? It's that, you know, recovery is ours, and that's where it is. And I like that connecting bit. I like that idea that we're all doing recovery in a slightly different way. We're all providing something, but I think there is a real opportunity in our missions and values to really differentiate ourselves from what treatment services actually offer and what they are. So I think that's something perhaps to think about.
Yep, I agree. John Harrison, did you want to come back in?
Yeah, just one thing. I was quite interested in what everybody's had to say, but the guy a couple of speeches back, and he focused on, which I found quite helpful, was what's our common values. And it's a great place to start, so we're not getting entrenched in sort of extended values and sort of values that we might not always recognize. I think there's they're things that can be brought on the journey, but if we could just start as a place where what's our common values to bring us together. And I thought that was really enlightening, and that's helped my process of thinking.
That's great. Well, unless anyone else has got burning desire to come in just for the last couple of minutes, I'll draw things to a close because we're coming close to 11:30. So can I start by thanking the three of you who stepped up and did the discussion of the values, and then indeed everyone else that's then made that even deeper and richer afterwards. And I think there's so much valuable material in these sessions. We are recording this, and we are, like all of the series of masterclasses, we're making them available to people. Kat is putting in the chat at the moment, has very helpfully put links to several of the services mentioned to their website, so you can catch up with them. And Kat will be able to send you the link to watch the full video back if you want to afterwards. We have a LERO members meeting, the hour and a half meeting on Monday, 2 o'clock. Kat can send you the link to that if you don't have that already. Everyone's welcome to join that. And again, another valuable thing about those meetings is hearing about what people are doing. Everyone is different, and everyone has a different angle on these things, and we can always learn from other people in terms of how we do these things. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. It's been an absolutely brilliant discussion as always. And I look forward to these. We've got the dates set. Again, Kat's put them in the chat. And the next one is Friday, the 14th of March. So 4 weeks from today, same time, 10 o'clock. And I look forward to seeing all of you there, and perhaps some new people if they want to join us. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a good rest of the Friday and a good weekend.
Thank you, Ed. Massive shout to you, Ed. You smashed it today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers,
Thanks.
guys.
Thank you.